Have you ever landed in a city and realized your mental map of the place was completely wrong? Not just slightly off, but decades out of date?
Absolutely. It's remarkable how often our internal GPS is calibrated by old documentary clips, movie stereotypes, or whatever international news fed us 10 years ago. We build these persistent mental blueprints of places we've never been, and then we walk off a plane into a reality that completely shatters them.
That exact experience played out recently for a financial consultant from the UK. He was flying into Ho Chi Minh City for the first time, expecting what legacy media had always conditioned him to expect: low-rise neighborhoods, modest infrastructure, dusty streets, and a city taking its very first cautious steps toward modernization.
And let me guess, the second he stepped out into the city, that narrative evaporated.
It didn't just evaporate, it blew away entirely. Within 20 minutes of driving through the centre, his mild skepticism turned into sheer astonishment. He found himself staring up at soaring glass skyscrapers, bustling international shopping hubs, and high-end rooftop lounges that wouldn't look out of place in Tokyo or London.
What you're describing is a fascinating phenomenon called cognitive lag. Western media narratives about emerging markets often lag behind actual ground level development by 15 to 20 years. The visual archive in the public imagination remains static, while the physical city is advancing exponentially.
Exactly. Take District 1 in Ho Chi Minh City, for instance. It represents that immediate visceral pulse of vertical density and financial capital. But what really blew this visitor away was crossing the Saigon River into District 2, now part of Thu Duc City. He expected suburban sprawl, but instead he encountered master-planned communities, sleek architectural lines, walkable green urban spaces, and an overall lifestyle vibe that felt strikingly reminiscent of modern Singapore or Bangkok.
That shift toward District 2 is really the blueprint of modern Asian megacity planning. Older central districts represent historical evolution, while these newly integrated urban zones represent intentional design for the future. You get to build from scratch with modern ecological standards, integrated mass transit, and digital infrastructure built right into the foundation.
It makes you wonder how a city can leapfrog legacy infrastructure so quickly. The visitor mentioned snapping photos constantly and sending them home to his family because no one back home believed how advanced the daily amenities were. Things like universal cashless payments, world-class dining, and hyper-connected mobility services.
Leapfrogging is the key concept there. Developed economies spend decades trapped in legacy systems because replacing existing infrastructure, whether that's physical roads or old banking networks, is prohibitively expensive and politically complicated. Developing urban centers don't have that burden. They can skip the middle stages entirely. They don't move from physical cash to checkbooks to plastic credit cards. They go straight from cash to digital wallets and QR codes integrated into everyday apps.
It's like skipping landline telephones altogether and jumping straight to 5G mobile networks. But beyond the skyline and the tech, there's another layer to this story that stands out: the human element. The visitor noted a profound sense of safety, seamless hospitality, and an overwhelming economic drive among the local population. It changed his entire investment outlook. He went from being a curious tourist to actively researching long-term real estate and business opportunities in Vietnam.
That transition from observer to investor is where the real macro story lies. High-rise buildings are impressive, but a skyline is ultimately just steel and glass. What actually attracts global capital is velocity, the speed at which human talent, local enterprise, and civic ambition align. When a foreign professional realizes that a city isn't just trying to catch up to global standards, but is actively defining new paradigms for urban living, their entire risk assessment shifts.
That brings up a fascinating paradox. If these cities are innovating at such a rapid pace, Why does the global public perception remain so stubborn? Why are smart, educated people still surprised when they seem to find top-tier infrastructure in Southeast Asia?
Information asymmetry and cultural inertia. Mainstream media in established economies tends to focus on developing nations only through specific lenses, usually historical conflict, economic reliance, or environmental vulnerability. The everyday reality of rapid middle-class growth, sophisticated consumer tech, and elite modern urban design doesn't make global news headlines because it doesn't fit the traditional storyline.
It's almost a form of intellectual comfort, isn't it? Maintaining the belief that the traditional centers of global finance and modernity remain unmatched, while the rest of the world remains perpetually in development.
It certainly creates a false sense of security for legacy markets. Meanwhile, the actual center of gravity for global urbanism is shifting westward across the Pacific and southward across Asia. When you look at cities like Ho Chi Minh City, you aren't looking at a city struggling to modernize. You are looking at an engine of urban dynamism operating with a level of agility that older Western capitals simply cannot replicate right now.
Which leads to a really interesting question about the future of global mobility. If the modern standard of living, physical safety, digital convenience, and economic upside are increasingly concentrated in these dynamic Asian hubs, how does that reshape where global talent chooses to live and build businesses over the next decade?
It fundamentally alters the equation. Traditionally, professionals from Western financial centers might view a relocation to Southeast Asia as a temporary sacrifice of comfort for short-term economic arbitrage. Today, it's increasingly viewed as a lifestyle upgrade. You get superior modern amenities, lower friction in daily tasks through integrated tech, high personal safety, and a front-row seat to genuine economic expansion.
It makes you reevaluate what it actually means for a city to be world-class. Is a world-class city defined by its historic heritage and centuries-old institutions, or is it defined by its momentum, adaptability, and the sheer energy of its people building the future in real time?
Perhaps it's a mix of both, but momentum is what keeps a city alive. Heritage without momentum leads to stagnation. What we are seeing in places like Ho Chi Minh City is raw, unadulterated momentum. It forces anyone paying attention to challenge their underlying assumptions about global development.
It really makes you rethink your own blind spots. If our mental map of a city like Ho Chi Minh City can be so completely wrong, what else are we misjudging simply because we haven't taken the time to look at the reality on the ground?
That might be the most valuable takeaway of all. The world isn't waiting for our perceptions to catch up. Cities are transforming, economies are accelerating, and the future is being built far faster than our outdated media narratives can report it. The real question is whether we are willing to update our perspective, or if we'll remain content living with outdated maps of a world that no longer exists.